Sherry Freeman. I've been with Ulta for 3.5 years. I had the pleasure of joining them as the salon manager here at 1139, and I have worked my way from a D1 to a Master 2 during this time, and I'm excited about submitting this to you all to join the educational team. So today we're going to start out with what I call a mixie. I think it's fun to come up with your own techniques, because everybody can walk into any salon and ask for a pixie, but if they ask you what a mixie is, they'll say, oh, you'll have to go see Sherry at Ulta. So that gets them right back in your chair. So a mixie is actually what I call a messy pixie. So we have our model here who has wore this beautiful dimensional blonde for a while now to camouflage her natural highlights. She does have gray, so we are going to go in and also add dimension to her underlining tones, and then we're going to finish off with a beautiful, beautiful rustic pink gloss. So I can't wait for you guys to see the process and see how we go in and fringe everything out. So the first thing I did was get a good setup going. So we are going to set up with, of course we need clips. You probably don't need this many, but I always like to have extra in case they hit the floor. So, and then your shears, I am going to finish off texturizing with a razor, cutting combs, a nice medium-sized round brush. I think your fingers are your best tool, so we'll be using both of those. This more for smoothing and direction, and my fingers for height and texture. So I've got her draped with her towel right now. I'm not adding another towel because we're actually going to cut her dry first, because we're going to be doing some clipper cutting. So on the front here, I also have her guards. We're going to be going, and I have them in a different order than most of you are used to. I know when we're in training, clocking our hours, they will take you from a 3 to a 5. But I'm going to show you a simpler way and take you from a 5 to a 3, meaning that you're not going to have to work so hard to get that ledge out of that hair that sometimes it can cause. From there, we got our oyster trimmers to clean up around our edges, and our clippers. So we're going to get started with the cut first, being dry, because we are using the clippers. I prefer a dry cut. And we need some nice clean partings. Now, with that, I'm going to use some basic terminology, being that the sides of her head, the top of her head, the crown, her occipital, her nape, and her parietal ridge. So the parietal ridge is our focus at this time on this cut. And of course, if you lay this comb flat against her head, it's where the comb will bevel is where you'll find that parietal ridge. So we're going to go in and we're going to slice out just below that parietal ridge, and we're going to pin her up all the way around, following that line. And we're going to pin her length up here, because this is going to be that mixie that comes in and gives you a messy pixie. I'll be right back. Okay, so I have her parted off just below that occipital bone all the way around. I apologize, the parietal ridge, her occipital bone hits right in here. We're just below that parietal ridge, and what I'm going to do is take her clippering, and I want this to go from a 5 to a 4 to a 3 all the way around her entire, below the parietal, that entire area. So we're going to start with these clippers. And I told you we're doing it a little backwards. If you start with your number 5 first, the reason I do this is because you got to realize it's going to go shorter than a 5 everywhere. So if we start with a 5 and go ahead and get our blend going up, then we go in with the 4, then 3, it's so much easier to get that blend going. I'm going to show you the section here. Turn around, see if I can get you facing the camera well. Let me get my clippers going. 1 second. How to push the button to get these going. So we got the clippers up and going. We're going to take this section of hair. I like to hold it out a little taut so I can see where I'm going. And you're just going to ease it on up, straight, following the contour of her head. Now, the reason I say follow the contour, you do not want to take this up and out. The reason we don't want to do that is because this mixing part is going to lay over top, and we don't want a ledge here causing a bump all the way around underneath. So we really want a clean cut all the way up following the design of her head. So we'll go to her next section. Follow it straight up, holding it taut. See how it comes right off in your hands. Now, we're not worried about any blonde showing because all of this is what we're going to be going in with our color technique and adding a beautiful shadow. So, I'm going to follow this same technique with the 5 all the way around. So, I'll see you in a minute. Okay, we have finished that all the way around. That was the 5, and now I'm going to be using the 4. The only difference with the 4 is I don't want to take it up all the way. I want to stop at least a good 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch down so that I get a good bevel down into the 3. So we actually come around here. You can still go up from the bottom because it's going to be a 3. You don't have to worry about it. And now's when you'll bring them out right at that 3/4 mark. See, you don't have so much hair that you're trying to take off at this time. You're just doing a very clean, crisp cut up to that level 5 length hair. And I'm going to do the same here. Something I do like to do is I get in. This does not hurt the guests. If you worry, ask them. But you get in and really do some movement, a little bit of pressure up and down, and it really gives a crisp, clean clipper. So we're going to do that all the way around, watching that blend in, and then we're going to go to the 3. I'll be back. Okay, so we went ahead for time's sake, and I have finished her off, going from the 3 to the 4 to the 5. And as you can see, it lays very, very nice all the way around her head. So that means this mixie part that we're going to be pulling down and doing shattered links is going to really lay over that nicely. Another technique, something I'll show real quick that you can follow through with, and you want to do it with your number 5. The largest guard, is if you feel like it's not laid down enough, because hair actually grows out from the head at times, you can come down at this angle and kind of give it that bevel on top all the way around, and it really seems to taper that down better. So I don't have that trouble with her because she has fine textured hair, so it makes it easy to go ahead and get her clipper up to the guards that she needs. From here, I'm going to go get her shampoo and prepare to cut the rest of her mixie wet. So I'll see you in a few minutes. Hello, so we're nice and scrubbed. Took her over there and I used the cleansing cream just to make sure that we get her nice and cleansed before her application of color. So I did apply some heat styling technology to her hair, but not necessarily for the heat technology. I didn't do that this time for that. I like to put a dressing on the hair while cutting. It gives it that slick feeling, and it also cuts through. This gives me a little texture. I like the feel of it when it's in the hair. You could also use spray wax. You could also use any kind of leave-in conditioner by Redken. Anything that you feel dresses the hair well to give it a coating. So what we're going to do now is I have went in and seen where the fall of the hair lies. So that means when you pick up the hair, is that hair going to actually fall where you're cutting it to? So we want a somewhat of a deep part, and I'll turn her this way for the purpose of seeing. Somewhat of a deep part, not necessarily a clean part. So I am just seeing right now how this hair is going to lay, because what I want is I'm going to come in and really get some movement going in this crown area, and see even wet how that lifts up. So imagine when you get a little texture in there. that's what we're going to be doing. Now we're going to bring her links up to just above the ear to where she has some softness in around her face, but yet she has this clean, sexy clipper cut underneath. So we're going to get started with that. The first thing that we will go in and do is, of course, clean parties. Now the reason I did it to where it's a swirl around her head is because I want everything to go that way. So I'm going to start on the side here, and let me turn my chair to where she can film. I'm going to start on the side here and take small sections that I can see my fingers through. And I'm going to establish her length with a good crisp part all the way around her entire head. But as I do that, I'll be taking it at angles as to where it is lying at that moment. Because what I want is when this style is fixed, she shakes her head, it's going to lie in perfect. So it's very important that you see where the fall of the hair lies. So our first cut, we are going to use the tip of her ear as a guide. We're going to come in at a 0 degree angle. We don't need it up here, we need it flat. So we're going to come in, press against that ear, and we're going to clip, clip. Follow through. And there's our first line that we're going to go by. Everything will follow to that all the way around. And then we're going to come to the back. Same thing, make sure you can see your fingers through it. Follow all the way through, crisp partings. And you're going to establish your guideline all around her entire parietal ridge, just below it. See you in a few. So I've established her actual length of where her mixie is going to come down. So everything from here is going to be those fine, thin sections coming over to the side. Even when I get over to this side, I'm going to be pulling them all over to this side. And then as I go around, I'm going to be pulling this entire section to this side. And what that does is leave all your length in the center where we're going to go in and do all that texturizing. So I'll see you in a few minutes once that's finished up. Okay, so we took all the small sections over to this guide that we had cut originally, brushing this all over and getting our guide cut. Now, even with the bang, we cut it to that guide. So when we push it over this way, we recheck, but you can see that there's a little detachment from the bang area, the fringe area, to the ear side area. That doesn't bother me. We're going to go in and texture out that little detachment there because that's what I call softness, and it adds a little wispy, and it softens her up around her face. So right now we're going to go into how to break this up and really make it messy. So once again, I will show you from this side. I'm going to go in, take my sections where it's laying over, and this is where the razor comes in handy. Now you don't have to use a razor. You can use scissors, you can use texture shears, whatever you're comfortable with, but the razor is my best friend. So you're actually going to take vertical sections and you're going to come down, leaving it shorter on the top, longer underneath. The reason being is this is going to bounce up, leaving her length, but also shattering the bottom just enough to make it feathery and wispy. So you can take larger sections to do this so you're not shattering it too much. So literally we're going to come, skim it down, and there's still the length there. So let's see another one, if you can tell. A vertical section, skim it down, shatter the ends, and there you go. So as this comes down, the lengths get more and more shattered. So let's take a vertical section, leaving that fringe out for now. I'm going to start at the top, go down, leaving the length. And it's going to air it out and shatters it. I love that word, shatter. So there we go. and it's going to fringe it all the way around. So when I get to this center section, we'll come back then. So we have finished up her wonderful wispy, bringing in some really textured layers. As I did everything going those fine pieces, I also went back through the very center, starting at the tip of her crown here, pulling it back, and I always use the circle of my finger, add a little tension. You can see where it is a little bit shiny there. You should be able to see the shine of the hair. If it's dull, make it a little more tense. And go in with the tip of your razor and texture it out. Then you'll come to the next section, pull it back to the crown. Why am I pulling it all back? Because I want all that length to stay up front. And eventually you'll run out of that length up front, and you can go in and texture it out standing in front of your guest. And now onto the finished color.